was awoken from a clammy slumber early one morning this week by deep growling thunder punctuated by sheet lightning and then some torrential rain. There's nothing like a good storm to get your attention, and there's something mesmerizing about such displays of power, isn't there? If you want to see some real-time footage, go on to Donegal Weather's excellent channel there that has experts report and great information. But some of the questions that went through my mind: where does thunder come from? What causes it? How much voltage is involved? How far away is the storm? I found myself thinking, trying to work out the gap between the lightning and the thunder, the speed of light and the speed of sound. Too many questions. I didn't have all the answers, but we're going to look at something about a thunderstorm today, and the voice of the Lord thunders is the first heading. I'm going to read some verses from Psalm 29, which introduce another thing that is going on in the middle of a thunder and lightning storm. David, the shepherd boy who wrote the psalm, probably witnessed many storms out in the fields with the sheep. Perhaps he watched this spectacular storm, as it's recorded in Psalm 29, come in from the Mediterranean Sea. He observed it sweep into the cedars of Lebanon, some 10,000 feet above sea level. And then he noticed it turning from Syrian, accelerate southwards over Israel and disappear into the desert of Kadesh. However, David had an additional perspective on things to how we usually view such an old-fashioned storm. And he repeats this phrase, the voice of the Lord, 7 times. Let me read a couple of phrases just to give you an example of what he says. The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. The Lord thunders over the mighty waters. The voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is majestic. The voice of the Lord breaks the cedars. So for David, above everything else, the dimension which we sometimes miss in the storms is the voice of God himself. David notes how the storm causes the great cedar trees to break into pieces, how the mountains skip as if they got a fright, how the desert is shaken, and how the oaks are twisted. But it's interesting because it's not the thunder or the lightning that causes this, according to David. David affirms that it is the voice of God that causes all those things. You see, the psalm begins and ends by emphasizing the strength of God. So next time you experience a storm of spectacular proportions, don't just say, wow. I think David would have us say, think, what a God. You see, it's the glory of God who thunders, and all in his temple cry glory. Storms are designed to highlight the sheer strength and radiant majesty of God above. There's a verse in Romans which gives us some insight too, where the Apostle Paul, he says this, that for since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without an excuse. And may creation's beauty and power prompt us to hear God's voice today. Secondly, I want us to note that we're to ascribe God glory and strength. You see, God's honor and greatness may not be naturally assumed here on earth by many, but they are in heaven because they're real and because they're true. Listen to these words at the start of the psalm. Ascribe to the Lord, you heavenly beings. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord glory due his name. Worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness. These words of affirmation of the glory, honor, strength, and holiness that are due God's great name are regardless of whether anyone recognizes it or not. David is declaring that a good thunder and lightning display is to remind us that he is God. The thunderclaps are an audio-visual reminder that God is powerful and that he speaks even today in the cosmos for those who have ears to listen. Maybe that's a question that he asks you and me today. Do we have ears to listen? Will we listen to the voice of God? And then finally, God gives strength and peace to his people. It is this God, the loud, powerful controller of the weather systems and the awesome displays of nature, that gives strength to the humble. Listen to his closing remarks that emphasize really the aboveness of God. The Lord sits enthroned over the flood. The Lord is enthroned as King forever. The Lord gives strength to his people. The Lord blesses his people with peace. May these recent lightning storms not only remind you of the God of the universe that reigns in power and majesty, but may you seek strength from his hand, that for all that you face today and tomorrow. May you also know his peace, like the calm that descends after a good thunder and lightning storm. Just as the air is cleared by the good storm and the earth is watered for the growth of the crops, may we be blessed with God's perfect peace. May you know true perspective, that God reigns on his throne above all, for he is the King of glory who deserves to be worshipped. One day we are told that every knee will bow before him, every name will confess that Jesus is Lord. Solomon claimed that the fear of God was the beginning of wisdom, that recognition of who he really is. And may we learn what the storms are teaching us. May we approach God with humility. On our knees, may we ask the King who humbled himself to die in our behalf to bless us with peace and to give us his strength. Join me in praying that we will see God with fresh, awestruck eyes as he really is, the revealed King of glory. I'm your host, Matt Tuttleby, with Bundoran Bible Reflections.